What's up, chat? Welcome back to another discussion video. Today, I want to discuss another problem that's been happening with Dress to Impress for quite a while, but we're seeing it especially recently, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding it since they got called out for it. It appears as though DTI has allegedly been taking heavy inspiration or outright stealing designs for their in-game items, and it also looks like they were not giving credit during those times. I want to say that most of the information in this video is alleged or speculatory, but all of the screenshots I've found are real, and we had to do a lot of digging for some of this information. Dress to Impress has yet to make a statement about these allegations, so we'll just have to wait and see. So for those of you who don't know, these monster shoes were a part of the paid baddie pass in the Halloween update. When I first saw these shoes, I thought that they were gorgeous, I loved these shoes, but then they got reworked and I was like, okay, what the heck? Those were one of the best items in the baddie pass. A little time went on and I started hearing that the shoe was actually something from somebody's Instagram page. Their user is Gravelines Theo. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. For those of you who want to check out their page, they actually have some really good designs. And if these allegations are true, they definitely deserve our support. This person found out that Dress to Impress allegedly used their design of this shoe, and it looks like it was without their permission as well. From what I've seen with their story response, it appears that they weren't aware or credited for this. And the fact that Dress to Impress ended up reworking the shoe really solidifies that this design was likely stolen without the original creator's knowledge. And this wasn't just, oh, I took a little bit of inspo for it. It was pretty much band for band. Look at the comparison, they are nearly identical. And as you can see, the original artist did end up calling out Dress to Impress on their story, so obviously Dress to Impress had to rework the shoes, likely to avoid any legal trouble with this original creator. And this is their statement on the Discord server as to why they decided to rework these shoes. They state that they've temporarily removed the heel mesh due to some issues. Our team is already working on a new heel mesh and new toggle option, so don't worry, they'll be back soon. Please do not open tickets for this issue. So it looks like they do plan to rework the item fully to something new with some new toggles maybe, which I am excited to see that. I hope it turns out nice. And maybe even give the original creator some credit perhaps? I don't know, maybe that's wishful thinking from the devs. However, this should have never been a problem in the first place. If Dress to Impress really wanted to use these shoes, they could have reached out to this small creator and asked for permission to use it in their game, also giving them some credit, and then that creator would be receiving recognition for their hard work. But instead of doing it that way, it looks like Dress to Impress instead decided to nonchalantly take it and then just hope people in the original creator wouldn't notice, which I'm not sure how they would think the original creator wouldn't find out about this anyway. This person is clearly somebody who's very much into fashion and design, so obviously they're probably going to notice if somebody is allegedly stealing one of their designs in a pretty popular fashion game, especially when it's band for band. I also want to talk about the rework. When I saw this first rework, I was like, oh, this is such a downgrade. Like, the original shoes were so cool. Where'd the blade go? Like, what happened, guys? What happened? And then, of course, we found out that it was an allegedly copied design, so that kind of plays into it, of course. But the new design isn't as detailed or cool looking as the last design. And it's also really buggy. I don't know if you've seen these shoes, but when you walk in them, they like morph into each other. It is so weird. And I don't think it's intentional. I don't think it's like some Venom type shoe. I think it's actually just a glitch because the Lunar New Year snakes that go on your arms also do this, and it's definitely not intentional. And it's still broken, even though it's been like 9 months since those came out. I mean, no hate to the dev who reworked these shoes, but they clearly did not put a lot of time into redesigning this, likely because if it was stolen with no credits, they would want to avoid legal trouble as soon as possible, which makes sense, of course. You want it to get out as fast as you can if you want to avoid legal problems. However, even if that's the case, there shouldn't have been a problem with the legality of the design in the first place. They shouldn't have been allegedly copying people's designs in the first place. In my opinion, Dress to Impress is a pretty big game. Your designer shouldn't be allegedly taking designs from other people and those people not receiving credit either. I have not seen credit anywhere for this design, which is the only reason I mention it. I'm not really sure where they would put that information. The only time I've seen Dress to Impress giving credits anywhere is in their quests, where they credit the devs and writers and all those people who helped make the quest happen. I've never really seen DTI give credits for items in the game, so if anyone knows where you're supposed to find that information, if it even exists, please let me know down below. It also doesn't help that this item was hidden behind a paywall, so Dress to Impress is getting paid for a design that they allegedly stole without credit. I'm not sure if the original creator is monetized on Instagram or any other platform, or if they make money from their social medias or their designs. It looks like they just make them and showcase them on their social media, but I may be wrong about that since many people aren't very open about whether or not they're monetized on social medias, but it's still not okay for them to be making money off of an item that they allegedly stole from somebody else. In my opinion, just from how the original creator responded and also how Dress to Impress responded in turn, I do think it's likely that Dress to Impress might have used this design without permission and credits. That's just my personal opinion that I want to include. They worked extremely quickly to rework these shoes once people started calling out that it might have been allegedly stolen. From what we've seen in the past, Dress Room Press is never really that quick to rework something. Some things are still broken, even a year later. Some items are still buggy months and months later. This quick response, in my opinion, may be to avoid legal issues, of course. That's all speculatory once again. I think it's something that Dress to Impress should definitely clear up if it's the case. As an artist myself and a content creator who has been a victim of impersonation and content theft, I know how frustrating it can be when someone is stealing your work. If Dress to Impress is really stealing these designs, I absolutely think it's something they should be transparent about with their audience while they work to resolve these issues. Brushing something like this under the rug is incredibly dishonest and once again shows a lack of accountability from the Dress to Impress team. Now, that is the main gist of what is going on currently. However, this isn't the only item that they've allegedly stolen the design of. No, there are a lot of items actually. Dress to Impress actually has a pretty lengthy list of items that they've had to rework because they were so similar to someone else's work. The only explanation for this would likely be due to legal issues, which once again is all speculatory, but we kind of have to draw our own conclusions using common sense when the dev team doesn't give us a lot of clarity as to why the items are reworked. Usually they'll tell us if it's due to lag, but for a lot of these items, they're reworked due to other issues that they won't specify. I do want to mention that this could be to avoid legal issues because stating that you had to rework an item because it was too similar to another item makes you take responsibility for the fact that you did in fact take inspiration or directly copy somebody's work. And just admitting that in itself can cause them to get into problems. So that could be why they avoid saying that they had to rework it because of these issues. Instead, just keep it vague. There's actually another example in the baddie pass. This is part of the free section, so I don't think it's as bad, but it's still pretty bad to be allegedly taking ideas or designs from people without their knowledge. But as many of you know, this Labubu looking thing got reworked into a cutesy little lamb. Dress to Impress stated that this was because they were having some problems. They state, due to an issue with the jester doll, we have replaced it with our new lamb doll. Please do not open tickets for this issue. Of course, they don't specify what the issue was, so it could literally be anything from lag issues to copyright issues. So them labeling it as an issue once again appears to avoid accountability if there was any problems with it legally. I did find some information about a small business that sells dolls that look like the little Labubu thing. Their business is called Stuffed Serotonin for those of you curious about their designs. A lot of them are really cute. As you can see, if you look at the design from them, it looks extremely similar to the Labubu thing from Dress to Impress. Almost band for band. So obviously there probably was going to be some legal trouble for that since it's a unique design and is probably copyrighted as well. I'm not 100% sure about that. Of course, DTI hasn't officially stated that the Labubu thing was removed because of legal issues, so this is all speculatory. I do like the new lamb a lot better than the original one, so I guess that's a win. However, why didn't they just make it look like that in the first place? It's completely different from the Labubu design, so obviously the devs are capable of making their own unique designs. So if Dress to Impress has truly been copying these designs, it just makes you wonder why, since they've obviously proven that they can create unique items. The reworks of these items are definitely suspicious, even if it hasn't been proven that they are allegedly stealing these designs. There's not a lot of information about whether or not Dress to Impress is going to be getting into any legal trouble because of these allegedly stolen designs, but if it's the truth, you can only go so far with doing stuff like this before people catch on. And obviously this time people caught on. Here's another design from this update that definitely looks like it took heavy inspiration from somebody else's work. This one is from an Infinity Nikki set. As you can see, it looks strikingly similar to the Haunting Beauty set. It is not band for band. It does look like they just took some inspiration from it, but I don't see any credits anywhere for taking inspiration from the set, and Dress to Impress is clearly not a unique design. You can tell that they allegedly took some inspiration from the Infinity Nikki set, so just comparing the bonnets of these sets, it looks really similar. The concept itself is very unique with the cage skirt and the cages on the bottom of the shoes as well, so overall there are a ton of similarities with the Haunting Beauty set and the Infinity Nikki set, so I think they did allegedly use inspo at the very least. And once again, I don't know if they asked for permission, I don't know if they credited them. You can't find that information anywhere, so it's kind of hard to confirm. You can also see it with another item from the Halloween update, the Alice in Wonderland set. If you look on Pinterest, you can see this dress all over the place. Lily Whimsy or Lolita Glow appears to be the original creator of this concept, at least that's who I could trace it back to. Their designs once again look gorgeous, so definitely go check them out and support them if it does turn out that DTI allegedly used their design without permissions or credits. This is definitely a unique idea, and the one that they put in the game looks exactly like the one that's on Pinterest. And not to keep going on and on about items that they may have allegedly took, but I also found this Batwing corset from Pinterest that once again looks almost band for band like the design that we have in DTI. The designer I was able to trace it back to goes by Jane's Corsets, and it looks like she mainly sells on Etsy. Someone on Reddit also found another design, and the original creator's website is royalblack.at. They design a lot of corsets like this one in the game. I also managed to dig pretty deep and find a pretty similar item to this trash parachute skirt. The Instagram account is wizard.wears444. As you can see, this design is incredibly unique, so I do think DTI would likely have taken some inspo from this item. It even has the same pieces dangling off of the bottom. I also want to read the description of this Instagram post to show how much care and thought are put into these designs, because I think it gives a lot of insight on why the original designers might be upset that their designs were allegedly stolen. Skirt made of 100% recycled eco-printed silk, eucalyptus, rose, maple, black walnut, onion, and probably other stuff, with some laser image transfers and pink dye transferred from a 60s fishtail gown. The waistband is constructed of decomposed burlap bags used in local so-called community gardens. On the waistband, I've also snatched on pieces of burlap where mycelium is growing thick and showing bright white. This was made from many hours laboring over a steaming pot and pestering the skeleton key of emails for every community garden in Portland to gift me their used, sodden, mud-covered sacks of burlap. Every time they say the same thing when I pick them up. How on earth are you going to make clothing from that? Haha, I love it. And when I gather leaves off the ground to print with, neighbors will amble towards me, suspicious of me or friendly towards me. They edge closer until they finally ask, "What are you gonna do with those?" And I admit, oh gods, I admit that I'm an artist. Once that word is uttered, I'm unsure of what it means, and I can tell that they're not so sure either. But even in the most hardest of that really just wishes they could tell me to F off their street, I can see the childlike twinkle of wonder in their eyes, that you can turn discarded leaves into beautiful designs and dyes. It grants me an uncertain reprieve. I love making things like this because it draws me into my surroundings and breaks down some of the barriers between life, art, private and public. It makes me think about the dump in the fall as the horn of plenty, and it makes me wonder why certain things labeled trash become exempt from the colonial grip of property relations. It feels amazing, if only for a brief moment, to be free of that. It makes me think about the ethical harvest and the commons in the enclosure and homelessness, and how it could all be different. These are some of the things that making clothing from garbage confronts me with. You can just tell by the statement that this person loves their designs. They love the amount of work that they put into their designs, and there's so much thought and care that goes behind it. Which is why I don't think that this person would be very happy to know that somebody had allegedly taken their idea from them. One of my staff also found a very similar design to this shirt. They're called Calizia Bustiers. And this is their Instagram if you want to check them out as well. They don't have that many followers. I keep having to add more and more into this section because we keep finding more and more designs that might have been allegedly stolen. So there's probably more than this. But anyways, I'm just gonna move on from these items that are in the Halloween update for now. There are so many items in the past that they have had to rework because they allegedly stole a design from somebody. We had it with the Madoka set, which is now the Myra set, because the original design was literally a band-for-band copy of the Madoka set from the anime. Do I even have to say allegedly for this one? With this set specifically, I don't think DTI expected to blow up like it did around last summer. I don't think they were super worried about if it might cause any legal troubles since they weren't a huge game back then. But they did have to rework this for unspecified reasons, which took them a long time, by the way. I once again think it was likely to avoid legal troubles, although once again, purely speculatory and not confirmed. I tried looking for the reason why the Magical Girl set initially got removed, but couldn't find anything in their announcements, so I think it was similar to the other reworks where they didn't give a lot of information as to why it got reworked. I do remember when it first got removed, but I don't remember if they made a statement or what their statement was regarding it. This also happened with some old patterns that they had. It took them a few months to rework these patterns, which in my opinion is a little bit ridiculous. I don't feel like it takes that long to draw a pattern, especially when you have a direct inspiration, since they obviously did take these designs. I tried looking around on Reddit, and some people did say that the devs admitted to taking these patterns and that's why they were removed and reworked, but I can't find them admitting to that. I remember it briefly, but I don't want to say for sure that they admitted to this, so unless one of y'all has proof, then take it with a grain of salt. This was the only statement I could find regarding the removal and reworking of these patterns. They state, secondly, another highly requested change was to bring back our removed patterns. We asked our artists to work to bring those back as close to the originals as possible for you all too. We appreciate your patience while they're being redrawn. We hope to have them back in the feedback update also. I know that quite a few of the reworks had to be reworked multiple times because of the complaints about the low quality. People noticed that a lot of the patterns were not as good as they used to be, or completely different in a way that they cannot be used in the same way that they were used before, which is how I feel about the beige rose pattern. I like both, but I do like the original more. These are just a few examples of some of the things that I've seen them allegedly steal from other people or just put into their game directly, such as the patterns. Here are just a few others that some of the members of my server were able to find while I was editing this video. Obviously, the developers still have to design the item, so it's not like they're completely stealing the asset and doing absolutely no work. but they are allegedly stealing the concept of the design, and I think saying that they're stealing the design is a safe term to use because the original creators are catching on and calling them out for it. And DTI is reworking some of these items, so the fact that they're reworking it is kind of telling on themselves that they might have been getting into some issues allegedly, and that's why they're reworking it. In my opinion, if they are allegedly stealing designs, I'm not really sure why the devs can't create their own unique ideas. I understand that there is a limit to creativity when it comes to fashion, and so sometimes you may need to take inspiration, but they are allegedly completely copying designs and trying to play it off as their own, not even giving credits allegedly to the original designers, and then only changing it when people catch on that they might have allegedly stole this idea. Why are we hiring devs that can't create their own unique works? Like, isn't that your whole job? And if this is the case, it doesn't seem like they're stopping anytime soon. I feel like Dress to Impress should be pretty wary about these things, because you can easily get sued if you're stealing someone's design, especially if you find out it's copyrighted. And Dress to Impress is a pretty big company. Like, do they not have any legal consultants or something that would be like, hey, maybe stealing designs allegedly is not the best business practice, and you might get in some trouble? I feel like that's just common sense. I feel like nobody should have to tell them that, but they keep doing it. And they do it with so many of their items where they keep having to rework it due to quote-unquote issues. And then people do some digging and realize that the first design was suspiciously similar to another creator's work. So I definitely think that the dev team should be reconsidered, because if this is true and they're unable to create their own original concepts and designs, then why are they on the team? I understand taking a bit of inspiration, but it is very clear that this isn't just taking a bit of inspiration. This is alleged full-fledged copying with 0 credits. So I definitely think that the dev team should be reevaluated to avoid this from happening in the future, because it seems to be occurring more and more. I also saw some people on Reddit suggest DTI hire a fashion designer on their team to avoid this from happening in the future if this truly is the case. It may be expensive and hard to find a fashion designer willing to work on a video game, but it can definitely help them in the future to avoid any legal troubles if that's truly what they are facing that is causing all of these reworks. There are plenty of people who create concepts for DTI just for fun and would be more than willing to work for their team. I see them all the time on TikTok, even though I'm not on TikTok, but I see them from people that send them to me, you know? Like, it gets around. I just find this very interesting because it's mainly the more unique items that they appear to be copying. I'd like to say that the Alice in Wonderland dress and the monster shoes and the Labubu and everything else that I showed in this video are pretty unique items, but then it comes out that they allegedly took these items, or at least took inspiration from real life items or other games, and then didn't credit them. So are they not able to create unique ideas anymore? Because it seems like the only clothes and items that they don't have an issue with are the items that are just regular t-shirts or something like that. Which makes sense, obviously, because it's just a t-shirt. Nobody really copyrights a t-shirt, but where is the creativity in the dev team anymore? I just noticed that it's only the unique items that they are allegedly stealing. Now, I already know there's gonna be some people that don't see an issue with this. DTI has taken inspo before, as do a lot of fashion games. So some people might just call me out for only calling out the DTI devs about this because they're already on thin ice, or that it's a non-issue since fashion games take inspo. While this is true, there are some other games that also do this. That doesn't make the problem disappear, and it doesn't make it okay either. The original designers of these concepts put a lot of hard work into their designs, just for someone else to allegedly pass that work off as their own. DTI hasn't stated theirself if they asked for permission, but we can only assume with the monster shoe situation that they most likely did not ask for permission from any of these other small designers, if they did allegedly steal from them, especially for the items that are behind paywalls. The devs are being paid for a concept that is not originally theirs, allegedly. If there were credits, this wouldn't be an issue. I tried looking up if DTI has a specific area where they can credit who they've taken inspo from, but I couldn't find anything. If any of y'all know any information, please let me know. Clock me if you can. I think it would be a good idea to implement and overall would benefit all parties involved. I think a lot of these original designers would have been more than happy to have their work be included in this game with proper crediting and permission, as it can be a large step in their careers and even boost their profits. It would be very fair if DTI had reached out beforehand to these designers they allegedly stole from. The designer can always say no if that's not something that they're interested in. I saw another case on one of the goth makeups where the girl that Dory had taken inspo from reached out that she found the makeup to look incredibly similar to her own, which Dory did say that she took inspo from her. In this case, the girl was very happy that they took inspo from her, but this isn't always the case, which we see with the monster shoes. Some people would be very accepting of DTI using their designs, but not everyone, which is why it's unfair that DTI is allegedly taking these designs. If the original designer is not okay with it, then it is not okay, and there should be no ifs, ands, or buts about it. When I started digging into the accounts of the people who had their designs allegedly stolen by DTI, I noticed most of the accounts had very few followers. A lot were very small creators. So I can only hope that if DTI is allegedly stealing these designs, that they aren't also specifically targeting smaller creators in hopes that they won't find out or that many people won't be able to trace these designs back to somebody. This is all speculation, of course, but the amount of digging that I and others had to do to find some of these designs just to trace it back to someone was kind of insane. These designs truly are hidden gems. I also want to read this comment that I saw on Reddit, which this is in reference to the alleged stolen designs. They say, "I'm very bothered by it. The only reason they didn't credit/compensate the designer is because to do that, they need to ask permission to use the design, which means there's a possibility of being told no. That's not as easy as just copying the design and going with it without all those steps." And they figure, hey, it's a small brand, the players won't even notice. Someone in another thread brought up something interesting, that the items from these small brands are replicated exactly, while the items based on major brand stuff is altered enough to not get in trouble. They know they can't get away with it with major brands, but they really believe they could with these smaller ones. Most of this is an issue of morale, and I personally find stealing wrong, which is why I wish to speak out about this. All of this information, of course, is alleged, but I do want there to be some awareness that this could possibly be happening. Sorry for the amount of times I say alleged in this video. Kind of want to avoid any legal trouble if I can as much as possible, just like the devs allegedly. So sorry if that language got repetitive. Anyways, let me know what you guys think, or if you have any more information about the situation that you can bring forward. I do plan to follow the situation closely and see if the DTI dev team puts out a statement in response to these allegations. If the situation escalates, I might make another video, but for now, stay informed, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.